Hi everyone. I am Professor Kim Soo-won. I teach at Graduate School of International and Area Studies in Hankuk University of Foreign Studies. This week, we are going to talk about Korea's contributive diplomacy in the creative industry. And the first session is about understanding what creative industry is. Film and videos, TV and radio, internet live streaming and podcasting, and video games. To which industry these products belong? These are products of the creative industry. The creative industry is involved with audio and screen products from cultural industries associated with traditional art, such as stage performances and museums, although culture and creative products sometimes overlap. Since 2003, the Korean government refers to the sellable commodities produced in the creative industries as content, and then it defines it as data or information of symbol, text, figure, color, voice, sound, image, and video. While content industries are described as any industries adding economic value to content through production, distribution, and utilization. And often these products are also referred to as audiovisual products or AVPs. And this name is based on the UNESCO's framework for cultural statistics, most of which overlaps with the categorization of content by the Korean government. Do you still remember our previous lecture on city diplomacy? A similar academic trend can be found here. Academic debates regarding the creative industry are mainly contained to the global north, and the frameworks applicable to the global north do not adequately conceptualize what's happening in the global south. If you're not familiar with the term the global south, Eileen will help you. Eileen? So, what is the global south?
When we are looking at development, terms that we will often come across are the global south and the global north. Therefore, it is important to know what to understand under those terms. Here, we might always talk about a categorization of countries, but we can still find different groupings and definitions. However, most commonly, it is based on geopolitical aspects, such as the country's historical, political, and power-related characteristics, as well as their economic situation. Therefore, the global south and global north do not refer to the geographical location of a country, but to a division into north and south according to political and socio-economic factors. We will have a more detailed look at one possible categorization, as it can be seen on the map according to the United Nations Conference on Trade and Development. The Global South mostly covers regions in Latin America and the Caribbean, Africa, Asia, but without Israel, Japan and South Korea, and Oceania without Australia and New Zealand. Countries in that grouping share similar characteristics in a variety of aspects. Not only do most of them share a similar history of colonial domination, but they are also often seen as lacking in providing a certain standard of living for their population. In this context, countries from the Global South are often characterized by a high level of poverty, low incomes, high population density, increased health risks and limited access to health services, as well as only little education opportunities. In addition, infrastructure is often only limited or not available at all, and the population experiences political or cultural marginalization. At the same time, the Global North represents the opposite of nearly all of those characteristics. Therefore, when talking about those opposite groups and when looking at them from a more economic perspective, the Global North is often equated with the economically developed and industrialized countries, while the Global South represents the least developed and developing countries. Additionally, looking at the concept in terms of official development assistance, it can be seen that countries from the Global North usually represent donor countries, being the primary source of aid for countries from the Global South. Many of those countries also contribute to multilateral institutions such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank, which play a key role in distributing ODA and therefore have major influence on the countries from the Global South. The reason for that is that aid giving not only from the donor countries directly, but also through those multilateral institutions of the Global North is often connected to a variety of conditionalities, such as policy changes or political and economic reforms. As those countries from the Global South often do not have another opportunity than accepting and implementing these requirements, this often leads to unfavorable consequences and critical adjustments for the developing country's individual situation. Connected to that aspect is also the following point. Since the expressions Global South and Global North are mainly used in discussions about international development, economics, and geopolitics to highlight disparities in wealth, resources, and power between different parts of the world. They usually highlight unequal structural relationships, for example, in terms of the previously explained conditionalities, as well as aid dependence and exploitation. A domination between interconnected entities within the global system can often be seen as a result. However, often being used as a metaphor for human suffering caused by capitalism and colonialism, it has to be understood that these terms also face increased critique since they oversimplify the individual situation of the different countries. Usually, it is much more complex than just saying that all Global South countries are not developed while the Global North countries are already developed. Also, countries from the global north still include aspects that need to be developed, and there is a fine line in deciding if a country should count as a global north or global south country. Therefore, the terms should rather be used in order to get a general overview of the country's situation and to acknowledge similar characteristics and experiences. This can in turn be used in order to find possible explanations and responses to different issues and challenges, such as political relationships, climate conditions, and the economic situation of a country.
Thank you, Eileen. Now, let me repeat what I said earlier. Academic debates regarding the creative industry are mainly contained to the global north. Yet, the frameworks explicable to the global north do not adequately conceptualize the global south. Hence, Iwabuchi, who was explained in the first lecture, points out the pivot of due westernizing knowledge production in the study of the creative industry. And recently, literature adding fresh theoretical perspectives derived from non-Western experiences have been burgeoning in volume. This session and this lecture also aim to contribute to the significant increase, as it suggests a fresh analytical framework for inter-South referencing while dismantling West and the West paradigm. This is it for this session. Thank you.